Hello, this is the Snap Revise YouTube channel. I'm Amy, and for this video we're going to talk about how you can use your mock exam result to form a much more effective revision plan so that in your next set of exams you do much better. With mock exams now forming such a huge part of the A-level and GCSE assessment, you need to make sure that you're learning as much as you possibly can from this experience and learning from your mistakes. Even if you feel like your mock exam result was pretty good, unless you got 100%, there will be areas to improve. Before I start giving you some tips on working through your mock result, I do want to say that preparing for your exams, whether it's your mock exams or your real exams, is simply a question of spending loads of time practicing the content and being able to actively recall it, and also doing loads and loads and loads of exam practice, so doing timed past paper questions and using mark schemes to check how you did. There is no real hack here, so if you didn't do very well in the last set of mocks, it could simply just be a question of building in more revision. So the first thing that you want to do when you get your mock paper back is to spend time reading through it and reviewing each and every question. Taking this time to review is the best first step that you can take, because we want to know exactly what went wrong, what went right, and what we can do going forward. Your teachers might do this with you in a lesson, so make the most of this opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about the questions themselves or about the way that the paper was marked. This is something that's well worth doing in your own exam practice too. So if you have been doing past papers at home or in your free time at school and you found something that's a little bit confusing to you, definitely ask a teacher or a tutor, just someone that knows what they're doing. Having someone with marking experience going through questions with you step by step will really help you to nail every mark next time, because it could be that you're making mistakes that you're not aware of, and so you're missing out consistently on marks. As you make your way through your mock paper, reading each of the questions, try not to focus too much on what you wrote as an answer. We want to see how these questions feel without the stress of a time limit or the exam situation. You might find that you made some very simple mistakes that you find a bit silly now that you're reading through the paper. It's not at all unusual that the stress of an exam can inhibit your ability to actively recall information and answer questions fully. The more used you are to timed exams, the less stressed out you should feel, and hopefully the fewer mistakes you will make. Something to ask yourself as you're working through the paper is, did I fully understand the question? Did I read the question fully? And was I able to extract the command word and provide an answer structured in the way that the mark scheme wants in relation to that command word? So now that you've read through the paper and you have refreshed yourself on the questions that came up, what we want to do is go back through with a highlighter and highlight everywhere we made errors. Here we also want to indicate where we missed marks. That's technically not an error, but it's an area that needs improving. So next to each highlighted section where you've made an error, what we want to do is identify the question style. So you might want to underline the command word, or just write a few words about the kind of question that this was, and then write a sentence about exactly what went wrong. We want to clarify how you missed the marks, what the error was, so that we can work on this in our revision practice. So for example, if you missed marks on a question that was about practical skills, you want to write that the topic was practical skills, exactly what the topic was that you couldn't answer the question about, and what piece of information in particular you missed. The value in this exercise is recording exactly what went wrong, so that when you come to rectify the error, you are absolutely nailing it on the head. It's not good enough at this stage to just read through the paper and memorize the things that you need to work on. I can almost guarantee that you'll forget the details of each and every error made in your exam paper. If you have a planner, I would recommend collating a list of these in there so they're all in one place, as well as on your exam paper. That way you can't lose them at all. You could also use post-it notes for this exercise. These can be useful if you tend to write a lot, and it also saves you squeezing in text in the spare spaces that you have left on your exam paper, because usually the only bits that are left are down the margins of the page. Post-it notes also make it a little bit more fun and a bit more interactive. So once we have identified all of the errors that we've made and written down exactly what went wrong, what I can recommend that you do now is redo the question. See if you can get the answer right this time, but don't panic if you can't. Just use the mark scheme to find out what the right answer is and how the marks are assigned to that answer. Remember that at this stage, this is just an opportunity to identify areas that need improving, so don't be too hard on yourself if you can't answer these questions the second time round. It can be quite frustrating when you've made loads of mistakes, and it can make you feel like there's just so much to work on. But if you work through each of the questions and get the ones that you got wrong in the mock exam right, then this can leave you feeling much more positive and motivated to carry on working towards the next set of exams. So like we did with the errors, we want to go through and highlight successes. We want to do this in another colour so that we can separate the errors from the successes, and we want to do the same thing that we did for the errors, so write down exactly what style of question you did well on and which topic you tend to do well on. Although it is important to identify areas to work on, it is also very important to identify the areas where you succeed. This is so good for identifying to yourself where your hard work has paid off. Highlighting successes can also show us the areas of revision that we don't need to spend so much time on, so that our revision sessions going forward make a much better use of our time. It's likely that at the moment you're wasting time on revising topics or revising certain styles of question that you just don't need to be putting as much time into because you already have them nailed down. If you're going to make progress, we need to be focusing more on those topics that we find difficult and less enjoyable because we end up getting them wrong most of the time. This isn't to say that you shouldn't go over topics that you find easy, but we just want to place less emphasis on them when it comes to our revision sessions. A good form of revision that actually prevents you from doing this is the lateness system, which we talk about in this video just up here. Essentially, you use a system of flashcards that are arranged into boxes which are different time intervals over which you will review the contents of the boxes. So if you have a topic that you consistently do well in when it comes to flashcard questions, that flashcard gets moved into a box that will then be reviewed at a greater time interval. This tests your active recall and just places those revision topics that maybe don't need so much work a little bit more out of your reach so that you can focus on the harder topics more. So now that we have gone through our mock paper and had a look at what went wrong and rectified all of the errors made, as well as looking at what went well, we want to now form a revision plan. The great thing about making a revision plan at this stage is that the plan will reflect the areas that you need to work on at this point in time. So using your highlighted errors, we need to start going through and having a look at subject content that needs to be reviewed. To do this, simply use your notes or textbooks or any of your revision resources that you like to use. You want to absorb that content again and pay particular attention to the bits that came up in the paper that you got wrong. I would avoid doing the same kind of revision practice that you did prior to the mock exam. If previously you just passively read notes, maybe try and change it up by watching a video about the topic, or use a different textbook or a web page, just a different form of absorbing this information. After reading through your notes again, it's so important to test your active recall. So find a load of past paper questions about the topic and then just work through them. If you didn't do much exam practice before getting your mock exam result back, then use this as an indicator to start building it into your revision regularly. Just before you sit your next set of mock exams or just before your final exam, you want to be doing more active recall practice, so more past paper questions than passive reading. And then after your exams, active recall needs to form pretty much the entirety of your revision practice. To keep this active recall revision interesting, then you can switch up the ways that you challenge yourself to extract that information from your memory. Flashcards are great for doing this and you can use them on your own or with other people. Alternatively, you could use the Feynman technique to test how strong your knowledge of a subject is. We actually have a video about loads of different effective revision techniques that you can watch just here. The Feynman technique is covered in that video, as well as the lateness system, so definitely check that one out if you're feeling a bit stuck for some active recall practice. Ultimately, your revision plan needs to be interesting so that it is sustainable. So using different methods will hopefully help you stick to the schedule to assimilate as much knowledge as possible. Timed exam papers are a must, but active recall practice can come in lots of different forms, so bear this in mind when you're putting together your revision plan based on your mock exam result. Although your mock exams are pretty significant, do remember that each one is an opportunity to further boost your GCSE or your A-level grade. For more advice to support you with your A-levels or your GCSEs, then please do subscribe to the Snap Revise YouTube channel just here, and you can begin by watching our video about some last-minute mock exam revision tips just here. We're also on social media. Find us on TikTok and Instagram for daily snippets of information to help with your revision.